So, listen up. We all have that friend with the perfect house, right? The clean floors, the fancy kitchen, the kind of place where nothing ever goes wrong. My friend Nick is that guy. But about a year ago, I spent a weekend at his place, and I found out that even the most beautiful, modern houses can have a secret. And sometimes, that secret is waiting in the smallest room. You trust your friends, but I'm telling you, you should never fully trust their storerooms. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened that night. It still makes my palms sweat. Nick's house is huge, all glass and wood. It's maybe 3 years old, smells like lemon and new carpet. Zero ghosts, you'd think. We were having a movie marathon, and I decided to crash on his sofa. The only weird thing about Nick's place is the storeroom near the laundry. It's just a standard utility closet, maybe 7 feet tall. But here's the thing. It has a heavy, old-school deadbolt lock on it. Nick always kept it locked. I asked him once, "Dude, why the huge lock?" He just laughed it off, said it was just where he kept his expensive work tools, and he didn't want his nephew playing with them. He was super casual about it, but every time he walked past it, he'd subtly check the lock. It was like a tick. A weird little habit, but whatever. Nick is weird. That night, before he went up to bed, I watched him do his routine. He checked the front door, turned off the kitchen lights, and then he went and wiggled the key in the storeroom lock, even though he hadn't unlocked it all day. He looked right at me and said, "Make sure you don't mess with that lock, okay? It sticks." Simple enough warning, right? It was maybe 3:15 a.m. Everything was dead quiet. You know that silence where your ears start to ring? That kind of quiet. I was trying to sleep, but then I heard it. A tiny dragging sound. It was coming from the kitchen area. It wasn't a thump or a bang. It sounded like something heavy, maybe cloth or old leather, being slowly pulled across a very smooth floor. Like maybe Nick's expensive tools had fallen over. I got up. I felt stupid, honestly. I thought I was going to find a runaway robot vacuum cleaner or something. I peeked around the corner into the dark kitchen. The sound stopped. And then I heard the sound of the deadbolt. It wasn't the quick, mechanical click when you turn the key. It was a slow, grinding, metallic sound. And then a small, quiet thud. Like something heavy dropped inside the storeroom. I stood there, paralyzed, looking at the door. I knew I should run, but my feet wouldn't move. I saw the door handle. It was shaking. Just barely, but it was moving. The shaking stopped. I finally got control of myself and ran back to the sofa. I pulled a blanket over my head like a 5-year-old and didn't move until the sun came up. When Nick finally came downstairs, I was sitting up, pretending to watch TV. I didn't say a word. I just watched him walk toward the kitchen to make coffee. He stops. He looks at the storeroom door, and his whole face goes white. The door was completely shut, but the deadbolt was pulled all the way back. The door was unlocked. And that small, simple little key that Nick always kept on a hook by the door, the one he used to double-check the lock the night before, it wasn't there. Nick walked right up to the door, hands shaking, and stared down. I crept over to see what he was looking at. Lying on the floor, right in front of the unlocked door, was the key. But it wasn't just dropped. It was bent. It was bent at a weird, impossible angle, like someone had tried to turn it the wrong way with a massive amount of force. Nick never said anything. He just picked up the broken key, put a new, stronger lock on the door that afternoon, and never mentioned it again. But he won't look me in the eye when I ask about that night. So, if you ever stay at a friend's place, and they have a room with a lock that's just a little too secure, and a rule that's a little too firm, Don't ignore it, because whatever they're trying to keep in that room might be trying to get out. This happened about 3 years ago, right after my wife Sarah and I moved into our new apartment. It was a beautiful place, old, but with high ceilings, you know? The only weird part was the storeroom. Every apartment has one, right? A small, messy space where you keep the vacuum cleaner, old suitcases, and Christmas lights. Ours was down the end of a hallway, tiny, maybe 6 feet by 6 feet. No windows, just a single pull-string light bulb that buzzed. It was cold in there, even in the summer. A really, really cold spot. But it was just a storeroom. We filled it up with boxes and forgot about it. Here's where it starts. I'm a night owl. I'm usually up till 2 or 3 a.m. working on my laptop while Sarah sleeps. One night, I was on the sofa, and I heard it. A noise. It was a light, scraping sound, like an empty box being dragged across the bare concrete floor. I froze. My dog, Buddy, who usually barks at a dust particle, was sitting straight up, staring down the hallway. Not barking, just staring. Okay, so I creep down the hall. I know it's stupid, but curiosity is a killer, right? The sound has stopped. The hallway is pitch black. The storeroom door is shut. I stand there for a minute, heart absolutely thumping. Probably just the heating system settling, I told myself. I turned to go back, and that's when I saw it. You know how when you shine a bright light, there's a crisp shadow? This was the opposite. It was a patch of total darkness. Like the light was less in that one spot. It was a shape, about the size of a person, leaning against the storeroom door frame. I didn't blink. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at this impossible black shape. It wasn't defined, but I knew it was looking at me. I could feel the pressure on me, heavy and cold, like being underwater. Then slowly, almost politely, the shadow moved. It didn't walk. It retreated. It dissolved back into the dark wood of the storeroom door, right where the handle was. And as it vanished, I heard a faint, tiny click, the sound of the door handle being pressed. I ran back to the living room, heart in my throat. I jumped onto the sofa, threw a blanket over Buddy, and tried to breathe. The next morning, I was exhausted. I didn't tell Sarah. I knew she'd think I was crazy. But later that day, I was taking out the trash, and I passed the storeroom. The door was slightly ajar. I stopped. I pushed it open. I went in. And there, right in the middle of the floor, were 3 small empty cardboard boxes. They had been perfectly stacked on a high shelf for months. Now, they were on the floor. And running through the dust on the concrete was a clear, distinct drag mark leading from the boxes to the middle of the room. It had moved them. Something had been strong enough, or real enough, to pull those boxes off the shelf and drag them across the floor. And it had watched me watching it. I never went in that storeroom again. We moved out 6 months later. To this day, I can't explain it. Was it a trick of the light? A crazy dream? Maybe. But I saw it. I heard it. And I saw the proof on the floor. So next time you're alone, and you hear a little scraping sound down the hall, or you see a patch of shadow that looks just a little too dark, don't laugh. Just remember my storeroom. Because sometimes, the simplest, most ordinary parts of our houses are hiding the things we can't explain. Thanks for watching. If that story gave you chills, help us reach our goal of 10,000 likes. What was the scariest part? Let me know in the comments. If you know someone else who loves good horror content, please share this video with them. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next nightmare.